We kick off, as we said, with the Shadow Crime Policing and Fire Minister, Conservative MP for Stockton West, Matt Vickers. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jeremy. Did you get out nice for Christmas?
No, I had a terrible Christmas. Thanks for asking. I had this flu. I've been ill for 3 weeks. I didn't come out till Monday. My voice is not going well, and I'm feeling a little bit sorry for myself. But don't you worry about it.
You were spreading this around to various women during the festive break. Was that true?
So there is a rumour going, which seems to have gone everywhere, that I gave it to Isabel Oakeshott. I might have pecked her on the cheek at a party, and she went down with it. Yeah, I don't know. How are you? Have you had a good Christmas, my old son?
I've had a cracking Christmas. I got, you know, lots of pairs of socks. Do you know what the world's press hasn't picked up on this week? Did you notice that Lynx have rebranded? They've got new stenches and new fragrances, and it all sounds very upmarket. It was the highlight of my Christmas day.
I think you have to be very careful if you're admitting on national radio that you like. What is it called? Africa by Lynx. Anyway, Matt,
well, probably not now. It's got some swanky new name.
It's probably not allowed to be called Africa because that's racist. It's probably got to be called something else. I mean, there we go. Mate, can I, are you a father?
I'm not. You asked me this last time.
Sorry. Can I see? This is what they say. I've got the beginnings of dementia. Can I ask you, from my point of view, in terms of me as a father, about this whole grooming gang scandal? We've got everybody jumping on Jess Phillips, who, as the safeguarding minister, is saying, no, we don't need another inquiry. We've had one, despite the fact that what was said in that inquiry has not been implemented. Hear me out. There are tweets resurfacing today of her saying in 2014, where she called former Workers' Party of Britain and Rochdale MP George Galloway a rape apologist, right? I don't happen to be a fan of George Galloway's, but if you're in the kitchen, be careful what you say, because it's going to come back and bite you on the backside. We've got Starmer saying no to an inquiry. We've got your leader, Badenoch, saying we should have it. The fact of the matter is, this is not entirely at Keir Starmer's door. The fact that he comes out and says no inquiry, this is right-wing paranoia, there's a bandwagon, that's fundamentally wrong. But let me ask you this, because the one thing you know as a Conservative MP is that your party hacked the British people off massively, to the point where many of them are still not listening. Why in the name of God, Matt Vickers, was what was said in these reports not implemented by the Tory government in the last 14 years? Because this is not a 6-month-old problem. This has been going on for decades and is a disgusting, in my opinion, stain on this society, this country. It really is.
I think you're entirely right. It's gone on for way too long. There's been way too many incidents of it. The last report, it all seems to be getting a bit muddy, the way that we're referring to this in the press. The last inquiry was around child sexual exploitation. Didn't home in on grooming gangs. In fact, it suggested, well, it name-checked 6 towns where this might have happened. We now know that it was in more than 50 towns.
How many? How many?
50.
And can we, I don't want to offend you, but can we call it what it is? These are not grooming gangs, these are rape gangs. I heard this morning, and it's true, they're rape gangs. These men, and I don't give a damn what colour of their skin is, they are raping innocent children. This is not an informed choice, as some leaked email allegedly says. These are men systematically trading in the sexual exploitation of young children. And of course, the problem, Matt, is, right, I mean, in my world, if you rape a child, right, you don't deserve to live in a civilised society. That is my opinion, and I'm entitled to that. But what I don't understand, because it won't come out of my mind and won't go away, is that if successive governments, politicians, councillors, social workers, heads of police, whatever it is, have turned a blind eye because nothing's been done, that smacks to me of a much deeper problem. That's the issue here.
Yeah, well, do you know what? The most vile, horrific abuse you could ever imagine. You read some of the transcripts of what's gone on there. It is beyond. You don't think it could happen in the UK? I mean, the stories about it happened in Middlesbrough, around the corner from me. I'm just stunned by the fact that this goes on, that it's been allowed to happen.
Are you telling me that the Tory government didn't know about this, but these reports were filed? You're going to say that there wasn't enough, but did your government do enough?
I think there was lots of trust in lots of agencies. I wouldn't say that nothing's been done. I think it's wrong to say nothing's been done. In fact, under Rishi Sunak, we saw this grooming gangs task force came back 550 people were arrested, 4,000 young people put into protection. Stuff has been getting done, but the reality is more and more questions emerge. We're seeing, a council now asking the government, please, God, do a national inquiry. We can't cope with this. We need it to be looked at properly nationally. We need answers to all of these questions. We're seeing big question marks emerge online about what the police have and haven't failed to do, about what social services and councils hadn't failed to do, and about what politicians, councillors and MPs have previously done or should have done and haven't done. You need to answer those questions. You need to find the solutions. We need to know the answer. We need to know how many victims there are. We need to know how systematic this is. We need to know where it's taking place. The fact we're talking about 6 towns and we're now talking about 50 tells you no one's got a grip on this problem.
For me, one of my biggest criticisms of this current government is their seeming... I don't believe they're proud to be British. I don't think they're proud of this country. This, to me, is one of the most disgusting things I've ever read. And we've talked about the infected blood scandal on this station. We've talked quite rightly about the post office scandal. In fact, we're talking about that before anybody else. This, I mean, if you were stood, as I said to Ian Collins, anywhere, if you and I were stood looking at a foreign country that seemingly said it's okay to get away with raping innocent children if you are of a certain religious background, hear me out, or a particular trait to your character. If I said to you in that same country that paedophiles get away, like Hugh Edwards, with not going to jail and get just unconditional suspended sentences so they're still free to roam and look at disgusting images of kids, we'd both say that was barbaric, Matt. We'd say that was completely barbaric. And what I find frightening is that people are looking at the United Kingdom now and going, geez, what's happening there?
Well, you hear the stories today about the fact that some of the people involved in this are still walking the streets. Some of them foreign national offenders. They shouldn't even be in the bloody country. They should be rotting in jail. And if they've come from elsewhere, they should be sent back immediately. If you're the victim of one of these abusers, you should not bump into them in the shopping centre. They should not be delivering your pizza. It's just not a thing. It just should not be accepted, and we cannot allow it to be accepted. That's why we need this inquiry. We need to get...
Do you accept that actually the Tories should have done more? I mean, there should have been an inquiry during the Tories' 14 years. There must have been. There's got to have been. Because
we had an inquiry of sorts, but more does need to be done. More definitely needs to have been done and to be done. We're going to have question marks like this overhanging public officials who are still in office. Yeah. They need to be active. If they've covered this up. There's 2 reasons that have come forward as to why people haven't acted, why this thing's been allowed to go on, why it's been brushed under the carpet, why people have turned a blind eye. The argument is either people are too scared to speak about certain things because they think they might be branded as racist, they might be culturally insensitive, they might be all those things. Well, that's just bloody ridiculous. And if we're allowing people to be chastised in that way, not fulfill their job out of fear of that, then something has gone horribly, horribly wrong in this country. But it's worse than that. Because if you hear what Simon Danczuk said, who was a Labour MP, he said that as an MP, he was told by the chairman of the Labour Party, you must not mention the ethnicity of these offenders because it affects our electoral success. It will prevent certain communities voting for us. Well, that just stinks. It's the worst of the worst. And
we saw it in the last election. I made reference to this yesterday. In the last election, 5 independent MPs won seats off Labour in the Red Wall, standing entirely on a platform of Gaza, nothing else, right? Let's not get into that debate. 5 Muslim men, that's right, they got elected, that's the way it is. There is, of course, the suspicion that Sir Keir Starmer would be concerned that he would lose that vote. I'm talking, though, as a father, and about morality. There can't be anybody, whether you lose your seat or not, who thinks raping a child is an acceptable look in any civilised society, let alone the United Kingdom, Matt. That's what I'm saying.
In both fronts, if you aren't up to doing your job because you're scared somebody's going to call you names and brand you as something, well, you shouldn't be in the job. And if you're standing for election and don't do what you know is right, then you shouldn't be standing for election.
Well, you're the shadow policing.
That's why we need the inquiry.
Yeah, but you're the shadow crime policing and fire minister for the opposition. Let's talk about the police. We know that, of course, everybody talked about Rochdale and Rotherham and Telford, but you said it just now. This is rolling out to more cities. But at least in Rotherham, and I have every right to say this, it took 8 years. It was British Pakistani men against young white girls, and the police said, as this evolved, that they were concerned that if they'd been, what's the right phrase here, not more vigilant, quicker with their inquiries, more I don't know the right word because it escapes me, right? If that was the case, okay, then they were concerned that it would create cultural division. Where I come from, right, if you break the law certainly as appallingly as this with young children, it doesn't matter where you come from or what you do or the colour of your skin or your religion, you should be incarcerated because it's morally disgusting.
Incarcerated. If you've just arrived, you should be sent back.
Yeah.
It should not be allowed to happen on the streets of this country. But a lot of what we talk about with the police, you were mentioning earlier about knife crime. One of the reasons knife crime is such a big... In fact, I'm going to do a plug for somebody. I was recently reading Boris's book, Unleashed, and he tells you about how he drove down knife crime in London. It's all the way back up now under Sadiq Khan.
Of course it is. Sir Sadiq, don't be so disrespectful.
Sir Sadiq, very true.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? But one of the ways in which it was driven around was through stop and search. The only way you get knives out of the hands of people who carry them around central London is by having a policeman, tapping them on the shoulder, checking the pockets and taking the bloody knife off them. And there are consequences for carrying a knife. And that's the only way you solve it. If, however, you're too scared to do stop and search because you might offend somebody, you might make somebody feel... The only way to take knives off the street is stop and search, and you've got to do it without fear or favour, without any discrimination. Whoever you are, if there's a suspicion you're carrying a knife, you should be searched, it should be taken off you, and you should feel the full force of the law for carrying it. It's all around this fear of offending people, about cultural sensitivity. The world has gone mad, and the consequences are there for the next generation of young people growing up with some of this grooming horrors of grooming gangs that are going on, with more knives on the streets. It's completely wrong. We need to get a grip on the damn thing.
Very quickly, because apparently I've been told you have to go. Is that right? I thought you'd like to speak to me, but apparently you're very important.
Out. I've got to yell at half. So I've got to go a big jog after this, but yeah.
All right, listen, very, very quickly. I mean, you talk about... And I agree with you. I mean, there's a story today, defence firms have stopped attending university careers protests because students go, oh, it's all the military, you're all violent. I don't know what's happened to the moral ethos, the moral fabric of what the United Kingdom is. I don't know where it goes from here. I don't just blame the Labour Party. I blame a lot of that woke rubbish on many, many people. But I do think somebody needs to get a grip. And it is interesting I mean, people joke and laugh, but if you look at Trump, who stood up yesterday and said, I want Greenland and I want the Panama Canal and I want the Gulf of Mexico's going to be the Gulf of America and Canada's going to be the 51st state, and if you don't pay 5% GDP, I'm leaving NATO. God, we could do with somebody with a pair of cojones like him in this country, couldn't we, Matt?
We very much could. Well, come as you go. But I think actually what's worrying about this defence story, about defence companies being afraid to go onto our university campuses, what the hell is going on our university campuses if the people who run defence firms are afraid to go in? We're letting people take over these educational spaces that are supposed to be safe. They're supposed to be places where people can come grow and develop as individuals. And these guys are going in there to offer these young people opportunities. It's madness. It
is complete madness. We love having you on the show. We know you're a big cheese now. We'll let you go. We say Happy New Year. Matt Vickers, Shadow Crime Policing and Fire Minister on Talk Drive.